Making a quick video here showing the repair of the door interlock switches for a KitchenAid built-in microwave. This is going to apply to just about any KitchenAid built-in microwave, regardless if it's integrated into a double oven or oven and microwave combination unit, if it's just an isolated unit, a range of sizes. I've personally disassembled the 24-inch version as well, and it's really almost identical to this. They reused a lot of components. And the reason I say it's going to apply to a variety is because my understanding is they manufacture these individually and then they combine them together depending on the model, the oven, etc. Right? So this microwave is probably very similar to the one that's not built in because it's a module, more or less. They literally bolt it together. Each one, the oven and the microwave, have their own control board, and then this user interface here kind of ties them together and sends commands so they work with each other. So it's all a very modular system. And you can tell because you can see this is the high-end model of the period with dual touchscreens. But on the inside, you still have one of those old press 5 for steaming, menus, which obviously doesn't apply here because there is no press 5 for steaming. You're going to be selecting things on a menu here. So they manufacture this basically independently of the user interface, which is interesting. And I think that's basically still how it's done. So on this one, I picked it up and it was discarded because the microwave always thought the door was open. I disassembled it. Now, in order to do so, first I was just trying to do one panel at a time. I did the outermost panel, which is akin to this on this side. Then I had to bend out of the way this water inlet because this is a combination microwave and full-size oven with steaming functionality, a pretty rare model. Had to bend that out of the way, didn't want to disconnect the tubing. And then once you do that, you can then access the interior panel for the microwave. You can see it would fit right under here. So there's multiple layers to disassemble here. And in order to make that all easier, I did take off the top panel for this oven. So you would have one here further hiding things. According to the wiring diagram, it looks like there may be another set of switches on the inside on this side of the microwave. And if you look here, there is a sensor switch there in addition to the one here. I can't say 100% which ones have gone bad. When I tested the two attached to this one here with a multimeter, I was getting intermittent readings. It looked like the contacts have corroded over time, so it was not a clean reading on or off. Perhaps it was sticking sometimes as well. This one I have not disassembled and gotten to. I'm hoping that one's fine because, as you can see, this is a much larger task. There's a bunch of things attached to this wall that I'd prefer not to mess with if I can avoid it. So going to replace these switches and then test it out. I know this is a 240 volt unit, but fortunately the user interface and the control boards are running on 120 volts. So if you pick the right line wire with neutral and you hook it up to 120 volts, you'll at least be able to test out the functionality of the interface. If you tried to switch on any heating, you're probably going to get errors at that point because it's not getting 2 legs of power. But for the purpose of testing the door locks and seeing if that's fixed, that'll do just fine. The switches I ordered, I got them off of Digikey for comparatively cheap each. I don't even remember what I spent per switch. I ordered 4 just in case I needed to do 1 or 2 on that side. The parts diagram shows 2 switches on that side. The wiring diagram shows 1. Ordered 4 just because you pay a shipping fee, so might as well just get what you might need at this point. These are completely bog standard switches. So I got these from Digikey. They're identical to the original ones made by Honeywell. Probably used in a whole boatload of appliances here. So I have the wiring diagram right here to refer to when hooking these back up. I took a bunch of pictures on how they go in as well, and I will add on to this clip as I go through this process. So here I'm showing the door latch mechanism, and this is a series of little levers. So it's tracking the open state of the door with that bottom bar there, and when it reaches a certain closed position, it drops and allows that lever to drop as well. And that lever is blocking somebody from manually pushing in the button that the door pushes to press the micro switches. So when the door is a certain level of openness, that bar is up and you can't push in the switch. It's kind of a double, almost a triple safety, because you have the two switches there and then they can't even be pressed in when the door is open. So once the door drops, you can see that rod drops as well, and then the button can be pushed in. All right, so a little update and kind of why I'm making this video to begin with. Try and capture these things that you might not otherwise F up without actually doing. So I went to insert the replacement micro switch there. I had taken pictures of how the contacts should go, and kind of, I didn't take a picture of the original positioning of these two, but you can figure it out based on the length of the wire. If you try to put this one there, you can't actually reach. When you're inserting these, you want the door to be open. And the reason being is if you don't open the door, those black tabs are going to be right there, which makes it very difficult to push the switch in. And if you do that, you're going to have a hard time pushing it in because it doesn't want to go in. And what I ended up doing is, you see how there's two white plastic rods to hold it in place? I have accidentally snapped off one of those plastic rods, the one that holds it up there in that top left corner. Now, I think with both of them in place, the switch is still going to get pressed down, especially since it has that upper catch right here to hold it down. But if I have an issue, I'm going to have to probably epoxy this one back in place. And as you can see, I actually broke both. So this is great. So don't make the same mistake I did. You can see the bases are still there. I can probably epoxy it, maybe drill a little an itty bitty hole through the center of each, insert a paper clip to kind of add support. I've done that before. So you would basically very carefully drill an itty bitty hole down the center, the diameter of a paper clip, and then add that as a support when you epoxy it in. So yeah, don't make the same mistake I did here. Make sure that you have the door open when you're inserting it, so this catch, this button pusher, is not in the way. Otherwise you're going to end up having to replace more of the assembly than you anticipated. This probably is not an expensive part, but it was still not something I was planning on replacing, and nor did I want to, because that's more disassembly. So looks like that was all that's needed. So you can see I've got the switches there. Currently that one's in the right spot, and so when the door is closed, it's pressing the switch. I will probably try and add, I don't know, maybe a dab of epoxy or something behind that switch just to hold it in place. I mean, I haven't looked at the part number to see how much that white bracket costs. I'm going to do that as well, because after looking at this a little more, after you disassemble this piece here, get this rod out, which isn't that difficult, it looks like it's two screws here that hold in this white piece. You can see the screw attachment points right there. So I'm going to take a look at it, but I did do some very janky hooking it up to a power cord just to test out the user interface. You can see it's complaining right now because this assembly is not connected, and there's a conductivity sensor right there. Interestingly, because this is a steam oven, it requires a specific water filter to clean the water before it goes in, and it tests that the filter is still operating by checking the conductivity of the water. So it's not a fixed usage cycle for that filter, it's actually checking the water quality. So it's saying conductivity sensor not connected. I'm just going to clear that. The oven light is burnt out in the microwave, so that's not going to be an indicator. But what is an indicator, if I just go ahead and hit start, it goes on and does its thing because it thinks the door is closed, or it knows the door is closed. If I go ahead and do this, see, will not start. So we are all good. Little addendum here. So I had mentioned that in putting these micro switches in, because I left the door closed, it made it hard to put the micro switch in, ended up breaking those plastic posts holding this one in. So fortunately, it seems like enough of this post here is still on the on the bracket that it's stopping this from just sliding back willy-nilly. So what I think I'm going to do is just add a little bit of epoxy or glue where this one rests against the bracket here, just to give it some support and hold it in place. I can order that white bracket for about 35 to 40 bucks, either used on eBay or even brand new, 40 bucks if I go online. But that's 30 or 40 bucks I don't really feel like spending. So if I ever have any problems, I'll probably just take this thing, you know, apart and replace the bracket then. But in the meantime, I'm just going to do that. I'm pretty confident it'll hold just fine. You know, and given the rarity of these things, these full-size ovens, but that still have a steam injection capability, I don't think you can even buy anything on the market today that has that. I'm going to keep this thing a good long while. Parts are pretty plentiful for all the main regular components from the microwave to the oven, so won't be a problem keeping it going. So just to give you a close-up here, in case you're in a similar position replacing the switches, here's the arrangement of the wires. On the left side, you go top down, brown, yellow, blue, and this is the right angle 90-degree connector for the blue. On the right side, on the top you have the yellow, and then on the bottom you have the straight connector for the blue. So any questions or comments, feel free to comment and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, hope this is helpful. This is a pretty easy fix. You're just going to spend, honestly, the majority of the time just disassembling these panels to get things out of the way. So this is what it looks like with the innermost panel on. There's this wiring harness that's only going to be present in this particular model because this goes to the inlet valve and water conductivity sensor for the steam system. So these things are really simply constructed, generally speaking, when it comes to wall ovens and built-in microwaves like this. It's just a ton of sheet metal that's been shaped together and screws in with these pretty basic screws. You know, there's a few different types. I'm trying to use them where they seem appropriate, but realistically speaking, you're just trying to screw everything together nicely so it doesn't vibrate and rattle when in use. One thing worth noting is there is this kind of Z-shaped bracket here that helps, I suppose, secure the microwave body to the oven body, I guess keeping everything more tightly together. So this is what it looks like with the conductivity sensor and valve back in place. So you can see there's the outlet for the copper line here. That goes, it has a clip and we had rotated it so that way when we laid the oven on its back to transport it, it was not being smashed there. You have the tube that goes to the boiler assembly, you have the conductivity sensor and some sort of other meter. I'm not sure what that is exactly. I know one of them's conductivity. Then you have the solenoid there. It's got this wiring harness, these two connectors that go up here. This goes to the computer for the readings, and this goes to some sort of controller for opening the valve. So when you're getting the outermost cover back on this side here, these two screws attach to that assembly holding in the boiler. So it doesn't sit completely flat against the ground there. There's a tab that slides in over there, but it doesn't rest completely flat against the oven cavity. You're going to want to use one hand to kind of finagle it into place where you could line up the screws when you get this panel on. This panel fits behind this flange here. There's these screws, then it fits behind these flanges here, or at least that's how it was when I took it apart. I don't believe it had ever been disassembled, and then it's got another slot for the copper line here and screws in here. So just something to be wary of with those two screws. You don't want to leave it loose. Might rattle over time, etc. All right, so mistake number 2, and again, for the reason I'm recording this, I put this back together, running out of these bolt hex head type screws. I'm like, gee, that means I must have assembled something incorrectly. And sure enough, the side of the microwave should be using these Star Torx head screws. Similar body, but different head. And I used these. So, considering I've already bolted all of this together, it's going to be some disassembly to make this right, because you need to use those for this top panel. So it's all back together. Turns out there's 3 screws holding that boiler manifold to this side panel. I recommend doing that one first, that one second, and then that one third, so you can kind of get yourself aligned there. There's a couple screws holding it there, the top, along the back. I think this should have actually been slid behind that, but too late. It'll do. So, yeah, I mean, not too bad. I know the light bulb for the microwave is burnt out. The previous owner told me that. Real nice lady. She sent me the accessories and everything for this. I'm real excited to use it. But she told me the light bulb's burnt out, and looking online, I believe there's a couple screws underneath this panel. Then you can kind of lift it away because I don't see anything on the side here securing it in. And then you can reach in and grab the little halogen bulb there. And that's a pretty standard bulb you can find just about anywhere. I thought about doing an LED in there for a moment, but this is a convection microwave oven, so that heat will just kill the LED, unfortunately. Not sure if I can get something at least a little higher wattage for more light. But anyway, once I get this installed, I'm going to make another video going over these interfaces. This glass touchscreen system is already pretty rare to see on KitchenAid products. It was always the top end during their production run and ended up in this middle price bracket, I think, where it was just too expensive for most people who buy into KitchenAid. And then the people who could afford it more easily are generally going to go with some of those higher end brands like Wolf. And I think that's the reason this steam oven unit is so rare. I mean, this is the only one I've ever seen on Facebook Marketplace, etc. And there's no videos on these things on YouTube as well. So once I get this installed, I'm going to make a video about all the functions, going through it, showing the menus especially. This is a really interesting setup. These screens basically operate semi-independently of each other. So when you first connect it to power, they both want the time. And when it was getting the error because I had that conductivity sensor disconnected, both were showing the error, right? So it's basically two different computers connected to the same data bus, communicating to the two appliance controllers. So pretty interesting setup, but yeah, these are pretty rare. You don't see them on a lot of products. They didn't get put into a bunch of things, but I think it's a good interface. It's simple before the Wi-Fi connected era, so it doesn't depend on Wi-Fi or the internet for anything, no data collection, but it gives you all that convenience of a soft touch menu. I can't find anything saying that this interface was particularly unreliable either. So, but I'll make a video going through all of these just because I think it's interesting. I don't think it's been covered on the internet, modern internet at least, and it's just something I would like to have out there for people who are weird like myself and want to see videos of these sorts of things and what they're like operating. So if you have any questions, comments, etc., I know I said that already. I thought that that other addendum was going to be the end, and then I decided to show putting the panels back on. Any questions, comments, etc., let me know. There's a bunch of components in this that are shared with the non-Steam and non-touchscreen versions because these were pretty modular devices. And in fact, they probably still share a lot with the ones being produced today, give or take. You know, I know it's been some years. So, yep, thanks for taking the time to check this out. I hope you found it interesting, and keep an eye out for that video going through the unique functions that you won't find documented anywhere else on YouTube.